I don't need nobody, I don't need nobody, I don't need nobody, like I need you. I don't need nobody, I don't.
Hello and welcome everybody to the first captain's run. This Leopards team, you're in for a treat today. Thank you all for being here. Let's just do a quick, a show of support for all of your teammates who've been participating in the conservation games. We've got a fantastic coach with us today, who I know you've had all of your conservation coaches with you in your groups and giving you a little bit of some feedback on what's happening with the projects that they're working on, and also to give you an understanding as to what's happening out in the field. The reason why we're playing these games in the first place is really to draw attention to the plight of wildlife and our environment as a whole. So with us today is Dave Christensen. He's going to give you a far better understanding of the topics that he's going to cover today. So Dave, over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Cyrus. I think what I wanted to sort of touch on was basic sort of conservation in general.
David, it's Corne Krieger here.
Morning, Corne, how are you doing?
Good, thanks, man. Yeah, just a quick one. What do you see hunting? How do you feel about hunting as a conservation method in Africa? And has it made a difference so far?
As long as it's done ethically and as long as it's done on a sustainable level, I think it's a fantastic conservation tool. Statistics can be very misleading. There's a lot of very anti sort of hunting sentiment out there. The biggest threat to wildlife is not hunting and things like that. The biggest threat to wildlife globally is actually the loss of habitat. If you look at statistics of, for example, lion populations, the lion population has plummeted hugely in the last 50 years. It is absolutely astounding what has happened to the lion population in Africa, and it's just because of growing human populations. The only way that we can start really being effective with conservation is, for example, in poorer communities and things like that, in communities that live on the edge of these protected areas, they need to benefit directly from wildlife. But now the problem is you have an acre of maize, an elephant comes into that field during the night and eats the entire acre of maize. They're actually a hindrance to your livelihood. So these people, they really need to benefit from wildlife in order for them to be able to start thinking about conserving it. And once they work their way up in their existence, up the sort of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and they get to a point where, let's say, all of us are, where we live in a nice house and we have a good job and we get to eat 2 or 3 square meals a day. We don't even have to think about those sort of issues. Okay, suddenly nature becomes important to us. What do we want to do right now? We all want to get out and we want to get back into nature. But if we don't start looking after it, there's going to be no nature to get back to. Or can we maybe put it across to them, Cyrus, across to the players, just to say, what are some of the things that you might be able to think about that can actually create opportunities for these people that are living in conflict with wildlife?
And I'm hearing everything that Dave's saying, that you're saying, Corne, as well. In terms of making the people who are around the wildlife see the wildlife as valuable, perhaps it's a case of ownership of some sort. How practically can one make them see the value of the animals and consider them to be valuable?
In order to basically preserve it, we've had to now use that as the sort of the bottom line, give it economic value. So to me, giving wildlife economic value comes in many, many forms. So those people that are living in conflict with it, what do we do to give it economic value? Okay, they have to have buy-in somehow. Now, obviously, we can't say to them, right, guys, you live on the edge of a national park, those animals belong to you, because they don't, they belong to the state. Okay, so what do? We now start to create opportunities for those people to make a good living from that wildlife. So we use that wildlife to create jobs. Okay, create jobs in lodges and in camps. Create jobs by managing the parks, having people that are in park management and wildlife management, people that are involved in anti-poaching. Now, the best models that I've seen across the continent is not to use someone like me who's actually got a comfortable life to run anti-poaching and to control anti-poaching, but catch those why are those people poaching in the first place? And I'm not talking about people that are involved in commercial poaching where they're shooting a rhino, or, well, actually, even then I am, you know, like for example, rhino horn right now is more valuable than gold. So the guy that's actually comes out and shoots a rhino, how much is he actually getting? He's getting maybe $1,000. Okay. So in his lifetime, he might shoot, now with all the security issues and that, he might shoot 10 rhino in a year. Well, he can earn more than $10,000 a year if he is has a job that pays him well. So catch that poacher, or get that poacher an opportunity to have a better quality of life by being involved in anti-poaching. And of course, being a poacher, he knows all the tricks in the trade. So what's he going to do? He's going to know exactly how to catch a poacher. Give him a good livelihood so that he can educate his kids, so that he can feed his family, so that he can have clean water and things like that. And he won't have an incentive to poach.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, I'm glad you went to the poaching aspect, because I don't know, Dave, if you can confirm here, the poaching numbers in Zimbabwe at the moment have almost gone through the roof because of the COVID pandemic, and how people have been in a bit of a lockdown and unable to move, and obviously to, like Cyrus was saying about trying to get food and ensuring that their livelihood is taken care of. Now, that's almost a little bit of a catch-22 there, where I think Africa is a difficult place to implement some of these things, where you're trying to educate people about sustainability and then trying to preserve an ecology, just lack of a better word. Mm-hmm. So I can talk from a Zimbabwean point of view, where I have a number of friends who are professional hunters. He is telling me that they're ripping out snares daily, hundreds, because people are looking for food. Okay. Now, my point is, we're in a very difficult part of the world where people don't have the opportunity to learn, the opportunity to look for better, or lack of a better word, other options to feed themselves. And so do you sort of ignore that, or how do you sort of correct that from a point where people are trying to feed themselves? And I'm not saying it's the right thing to do. It's the wrong thing to do. You can't poaching. I'm totally against poaching, but how do you actually go to a guy, say in Binga, and say, stop, pull out all your nets?
Yeah, no, I mean, ultimately, from my standpoint, it looks as though, it's an economic thing more than anything. You know, if people cannot feed themselves, like Ed was saying there, you know, they are not going to follow by any rules. They're going to do what's best for their families. And ultimately, Dave, does that mean privatizing big tracts of land?
Is the poaching thing and essentially the cutting down of wildlife not bigger than that? And by that, I'm not saying it's not economics, it is, but whilst there's this at play with, I need to feed my family, so someone's gonna pay me $1,000 to bring them a rhino horn, there's the person who's paying the $1,000 so that they can make $10,000. by getting the rhino horn? Are they not known? Are the syndicates, are the people who are right at the top? Because this is people. It's not just this happens, you know. There are people there. And if conservation, which has been going on for so long in an effort to try and stop this and preserve habitat and animals and, do we not know who they are?
Very often, poaching might start off as a very small subsistence poaching issue, where people might say, you know what, actually, I'm really hungry. We all know that a lot of these people are protein impoverished. They go out, they set a couple of snares, and then they catch a couple of animals and they eat them, and you know, life is improving. But then they realize, you know what, actually, I put out 3 snares, I caught 2 animals in 2 days. This is actually quite easy. So what happens if I put 100 snares and catch 50 animals, and then I can sell the meat and make some extra money? So then it goes from a subsistence level to a commercial level. I mean, one of the best examples of community buy-in was the campfire program, which was something set up by conservationists in this country many years ago. And campfire stands for Communal Area Management Program for Indigenous Resources. What Campfire Project did was they got the rural district councils involved, and they said, if an elephant come into someone's crops at night, we will get a client from overseas to come out and hunt that elephant, and we won't charge him a full whack because he's not shooting a trophy animal. He's shooting a non-trophy. It might be a very young bull that's got very small tusks, so it's not something that he would initially like to do, but he likes the whole thing of being in the bush and doing a bit of hunting. So they'd say, okay, instead of paying, let's say, $25,000 to shoot an elephant of his choice, we charge him $10,000, but he has no choice. He has to shoot that elephant that is responsible for destroying the crops. So that $10,000 now goes to the local community. So now they're solving the problem of getting rid of, the animal destroying the crops. They now get $10,000 and they get the meat. So there's now a massive economic benefit to that community by solving a problem in the first place. And it worked really, really well.
So just a comment, Dave, if that's right, before we go. Do you reckon this Zambezia can be the next campfire?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And one of the things you guys have noticed that I've actually put, I put a couple of stuff on the giant sable there, and I hope to talk about it at some point. The giant sable is an animal which was basically down to 100 individuals left in the world. And just through the conservation efforts of one man, they're basically up to about 250 animals in 10 years. So it's an incredible initiative. It only occurs in one place in the world. That's in Angola, which is actually part of Zambezia. It's something that's very close to my heart.
What I'd like to do is to get all of you to clap for our people in the anti-poaching environment and to show our support for them on this call. So I'm going to start it all with a little bit of a clap and an applause. I don't know if we can all get that from you. Thank you so much, everybody. And thank you, Dave, for being such a great participant in this. We're going to end the call here. Thank you so much for also participating in the conservation games, and enjoy the rest of your weekend.
Our wildlife needs help. Tourism to Africa is at an all-time low. You can assist by liking and sharing the conservation games. You can contribute financially by hitting the donate button on the Zambezia.com website. Let's get together and back up the frontline conservation team.